CCD. CCD started when Dave Hackenberg woke up in 2006. He went out to check his bee hives and was terrified to find that all 30,000 bees were gone. He phoned to his fellow beekeeper friends and figured out that they too had their bees disappeared. That was the start of CCD. Since then, thousands of bees have disappeared. Scientists do not know why CCD is happening. You can help by buying organic foods if you can.
You can help bees by being aware of how they're dying and disappearing and they need help. Our documentary may help with that.
Tell me all the things that you see here.
There's dots on dots. There's dots.
Where are you seeing the seeds?
Where are they?
Yeah. What are those, Ella?
I don't know.
They look like dots.
Eggs.
What are they called?
Egg
The egg cells. So what are these right here, Dante? What's that?
Stamen.
Yeah, those are stamen right here. Yep.
That's a stamen.
What about that in the middle?
The pistil.
It's a pistol.
Yes.
Yes.
What's that part? Tell Ashley. She's asking questions.
What part?
She asked what that
Did
part
you
was. Lily, what was your question?
But eggs.
Where are the eggs? What are they for? That was your. What are they?
Here.
Yep, right in there. What are they for?
Growing up.
For growing up.
I told her they were for making new plants.
Making new plants. How do they get fertilized?
By bees.
What do the bees get on the pistil to fertilize them?
Pollen.
The
Petal
pollen
looks
that they get from the what?
Stamen.
From the stamen. Yep, you're right.
I like this. You can, to help bees, you can plant things that they like. Bees like lavender and honeysuckle and dandelions and daisies. Bees need flowers to live. Bees like many different flowers to get their pollen. Here is an apple blossom. This is an iris. Bees like iris. Here is a tulip. This is a lavender. Bees like lavender. This is a dandelion. Bees like dandelion. This is an orange blossom. Bees like orange blossoms. This is a tulip. Bees like tulips. Bees like poppies. Here's a California poppy. Bees do not like dark red flowers because it is black to them. What you gonna do, bees? What you gonna do, bees? What you gonna do when I pollinate you? Lavender is good for bees, good for bees, good for bees. Lavender is good for bees. You can help bees by letting your veggies go to seed instead of harvesting them at the end of the year.
And the bees then fall down and they go into the hive for the beekeeper to take home. And he takes them to his farm. But here all of them were falling in there, and all of a sudden here goes the bee. Queen bee, she doesn't like it. She goes and flies up in a tree. So he can recognize out of all of these bees, this queen bee is just a little bit bigger. And with his eyesight, he could tell the queen bee left goes up in the tree. All these bees come from the hive and start to go up into the tree following the queen bee. So he says to me, do you have a ladder? I said, yeah, but I don't want you to get on the ladder up in the tree. I'll use my tractor, and I have a lift on it. Put him in the lift, put his thing under, it goes up there, and he's tapping them, and they're going back into the beehive that he had there. And all of a sudden, he says to me, I'm operating the tractor. He says, I got the queen bee right here. He had the queen bee in his fingers. And I said, bring it down, I want to see it. Because I had never seen a queen bee, because I can't recognize it like he can. So he brought the queen bee down, he showed it to me just a little bit bigger, but all the bees follow that one bee, queen bee.
That's amazing.
So the reason that they're really docile is because
Oh, the bees are getting out.
when the queen decides to swarm, they eat a lot of food, a ton of food, and then they follow her, and their abdomens are really packed with honey. They're so full that they can't sting, and they've prepared themselves for a journey, so they eat a lot. And so their whole, this is a lot of bees, their whole purpose is to protect their queen. Their whole purpose is to protect their queen, so they're not going to sting when they're protecting their queen, because they die when they sting, right?
The queen bee lays her eggs. They will not hatch for quite a while. Then after 4 months, they will hatch into larvae. The larvae feed on bee bread, which the workers bees bring to them. Then they spin a cocoon and become a pupa inside. Pupa does not move or eat. Then, when it comes out of its cocoon, it appears as a bee. Now the queen has helpers. The new and polished bee will go and get nectar from flowers and bring it back to the hive.
There is 3 kinds of honeybees in the hive. The queen bee, the worker bee, and the drone.
What are you?
Queen bee. This is the queen bee. Queen bee, most important. In the hive, the queen and the biggest bee, she lay eggs. 1,000 eggs. She takes to the hive. Drone bees don't sting. They have 4 wings. They mate with the queen. That's their only job. Worker bees, they wake, they fly. They stay, they take care of the babies, take care of the hive. Bees are important.
They'll create a new queen because maybe their queen that is in the hive is not laying as much larva, or she's aging and she's getting older and she's not as strong. So they'll create a new queen larva, the queen larva hatches, and then there's 2 queens in the hive, and that just doesn't work. So they'll get into a dispute, and usually the weaker queen will decide to leave the hive. It's not 100%, but usually the weaker queen will leave the hive. When the weaker queen leaves the hive, she flies off, she picks a place, probably in the situation of the one that I gathered from the school. I'm pretty sure it was the weaker queen, because her wing was injured and she died. She didn't make it through. She was and if she can't fly, then she's no good to the hive.
I have a question. How do they know which queen is weaker? Well, the queen who thinks that they're weaker just leaves the hive.
Yeah, the queen that doesn't really want to fight anymore decides to leave.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
What if one of the bees come out of that hive and one of the bees come out of that hive? Will they argue against each other?
Not
If one
out.
bee comes from this hive and goes into that hive, they'll kill her.
Yeah. They don't let other hive bees in their hive, but once they're out, they're fine. They're very protective of their queen and of their hive and of their honey. So there's always guard bees that sort of watch the front door for intruders, maybe mice, bears. We don't have bears, but bears. people, and they're not really looking for people, but you know, if a person is standing right in front of it, the guard bee might tell the other bees there's an intruder, and then that's when they'll come out and they potentially could sting. But they're not interested in people at all, and that is one reason I keep moving objects around the front of it, like trees or plants or something, and there's always people moving around because they're less inclined. If there's a lot of movement and action around the hive, they're not as ready to, you know, attack or whatever. And when you see them out in big, huge fields on farms, they're much more probably aggressive bees because there's not as much movement or people or action or activity around the hives.
Have you touched one of your bees once?
Oh, I touch them a lot.
Did you ever get stung?
Yes, I've gotten stung. Yes.
How many times?
Oh, I don't know. The only time I've ever gotten stung, and I want to go back to the queens because I didn't really get to finish that, but the only time I've ever gotten stung is when I'm working in a beehive and they're a hungry hive. They don't have enough food, they don't have enough honey stored, I haven't fed them enough sugar water during the season, or they're a brand new hive that's just on, you know, just sort of getting off the ground, like the hive, the swarm that I collected at the school. They were not a happy group. Their queen was had a broken wing, so she wasn't strong, she wasn't laying a lot of larvae, and she didn't, having a broken wing meant she didn't get to go out and have her mating flight and mate with all the drones in the neighborhood. And when she mates with all the drones in the neighborhood, she's creating all of the larvae for her entire life to lay the eggs in the hive and to create a healthy, strong hive. And so with a broken wing, she's too weak to do her job, and that's when they start to decide they are going to make a new queen, and then you have still have a question. After this queen, the second queen is born, they can fight to death, yes, but they choose one of the larvae and they feed it royal jelly and they produce a queen. So they can make their own queen. It's any larva just turns into a bee or a drone, and they can specify how that they can create drones, and they can create queens, and they can create workers.
But what happens to the old queen?
So the two queens, there can't be two queens in the hive, and so they'll either fight to death, or one queen, and usually there's a fight that comes up, and then one of the queens will decide to leave. And that's when a swarm happens, which is what I came to your school to collect. Was there probably someone's hive in the neighborhood ended up with two queens. And the reason they usually end up with two queens is maybe the queen that exists isn't as productive. She's not laying in so much larvae. I know.
This is a bee. They have 6 legs. Their legs are called the pollen baskets. They carry pollen till they get back to the hive to turn it into honey. They have 4 wings and hind wings used for flying. Their compound eyes can see in any direction but behind them. They use their mandible for sucking honey to bring back to the hive, sucking nectar to bring back to the hive to turn into honey. They use their antennas to sense, smell, and touch. Their stinger is used for stinging and to say, "Get away from my hive."
Lucas James coming in, and I will be talking about 3 different kinds of bees. Not all of them are from America. So the first one I'm going to talk about is the blue orchard bee. They are members of the mason bee family, and they are common visitors to gardens and yards. I drew a picture of myself, and I will be able to show you here. Blue orchard bee. There you go. Okay. Next one I will be talking about is African cuckoo bee, and they live in Africa, of course. It's in the name. And they're great diggers, and they're cuckoo because it's in the name. And here's a picture of I drew myself. There you go, African cuckoo bee. It's kind of a weird name. Next I will be talking about the carpenter bee. They have golden amber skin, hairs on their body, and they have green eyes. And they also, they have a leaf nest, and they are carpenters. Okay, here's a picture of them I drew myself again. Carpenter bee. That is all here from Lucas James. Next, I have the bumblebee. And the bumblebees are not as good pollinators as the honeybee. And the bumblebee is very fuzzy. And like most bees, once it stings, it dies. And like all the other bees, when it dies, it smells like bananas. So if you ever have a banana and you're eating a banana and you have the smell of a banana, to any bee, and you have a banana and you see a bee, watch out, because they'll sting you. Okay, I don't have a picture of the bumblebee. Next, we have the honeybee. They are great pollinators. They make they make honey, and they are amazing, just amazing. The queen mates, like all other bees, with a drone, and then they like, it's kind of like mating, like polar bear mating, but not with polar bears and not in the Arctic.
How are hives made? The nest of the honeybee has many cells, and the shape of it is a hexagon, and hives are made of wax. The hexagon has 6 sides. There can be 10 or 12 honeycombs in the nest. The small cells of the bees are worker bees. Other small cells are for storing pollen. Further away, bees store their honey in the cells. Larger cells in the low corners are for drones. There's one kind of cell that is bigger, and it is for the queen.
The bees flap their wings 250 times per second. The bee has 4 wings, and the bee flies to flower to collect pollen, then brings it back to the hive. The bee won't fly when the wind is 25 miles per hour. The drones do a mating flight with the queen. The bees do a dance to communicate to the other bees where there's flowers, and they get the pollen. The drones meet at the mating flight with the queen, and the back part of their body falls off, and they die. The bee senses are seeing, feeling, tasting, and smelling, and hearing. Seeing is how they can find where they're going, and seeing is also for seeing if there's flowers. They also see light, motion, shape, and color. And feeling is for finding the hive and discovering other bees. Hearing, to fly, to know where things are, to listen, to communicate. The smelling is used for identifying dead bees, finding flowers, maybe finding the queen, finding their hive maybe. You can help bees by supporting your local beekeepers and buy honey from them instead of the grocery store. And you can also learn a little bit about how to beekeep if you are going to.
Honey is different colors depending on what kind of flowers the bees use to make it. Clover flowers make a light yellow honey. Acacia flowers make a dark yellow honey. You can help by buying organic honey. Beekeepers extract honey from the honeycomb with an extractor. The honey comes out from a nozzle in the extractor. It then goes into a jar ready to be sold.
How honey is made. Bees go to flowers to collect pollen and nectar from flowers. Then they take it back to the hive and stir it in their mouths, and then it becomes honey.
Usually the
I like
trays
the
that
Wow,
the
that is
queen
very
lays her larva
fragile.
in. Yeah, they're fragile.
So I have a question.
No, not really touch it.
Do they ever create more than just one queen larva? Or they only always create one?
I've been in hives where they're trying to create like 4 or 5.
And then those all will fight?
Well, what we do is, as a beekeeper, we either don't let them create a new queen and essentially just kill it, or what I'm going to do this year is I'm going to collect any of the queens that they're creating and start new colonies. So you remove it if you catch it. But they'll
You can help bees by trying not to make them mad in their hives, because when bees sting, they die.
Natural predators of bees. Autumn kills bees because it's really cold and the leaves are falling and the flowers aren't really ready. Bears smash open the hive and eat the honey, and the worker bees fly out and sting the bear. The thick fur from the bear protects it from the stings. Skunks spray a nasty smell which creates the bees to go out of control and be dizzy and fly around, and then the skunk just walks in and eats the honey. Wasps take over the hive, and it takes the bees a really hard time to defend its hive. Scientists have found out that there's this kind of fly that puts eggs into bees' body and stings the bee, climbs onto the bee and stings the bee, and puts little eggs in it. When the eggs hatch, the eggs start eating the whole entire body of the bee. And then the bees fly around randomly. They don't do their order of dance. They just fly around randomly, and then they just fall to the ground and die.
Bees get diseases like viruses, parasites, and mites. When bees get a virus, they pass it along to other bees. Viruses can infect the bees' airways. Bees get mites. Some people believe that bees are dying from pesticides.
Pesticides are bad for bees because they have chemicals in them that are very bad for the environment, and the pesticides come to the bees land on the flower, and the flower has a pesticide on them, and then they fly back to the hive, and then they feed it to the baby larva, and then it spreads.
You can help bees by not spraying pesticides or chemicals on your lawn or your garden.
The reason why you should buy organic foods is because it helps the bees, and it's better for the planet, and it helps your bodies, and it's better for your bodies, and it's not sprayed with chemicals, and it's very, very good to buy organic foods. It's good to support your local farmers and to support organic growers.
You can help bees by buying food that has not been sprayed by pesticides.
That corner and that top one with that one. Are they moving? No. You mean like that one, and that one, and that one? That one's
What do you guys think?
Sweet.
What do you think of the bee garden?
Good.
I think we're escorting the bees on Sunday. I heard one.
and eat the honey. The workers fly out and try to stop the bear, but its thick fur protects it. You can go grab another piece of paper.
Yeah, I have some more.
Okay. I copied fireworks in black. So they stand out.
That queen bee.
We're gonna put a 1 on this sticker to put on the bee to see if it'll come back to our flowers. This is how you catch
A bee!
I caught one. Can I see it? I let him go. Okay. I'm gonna catch
a few more, and then it will be done. This one.
You gotta shop with Addie. Hey, Addie. Hey, you two. What are you two doing?
We have an idea.
Lucas wants to know what you're doing.
Is this big enough, Lisa?
Lucas wants to know what you're doing.
Don't I ask Addie and Ella?
Let me see. Oh, I see.
We're tying
Small enough?
a flower around our
Yeah.
finger, so maybe the
Okay,
bees
wait.
will come over.
Make sure that stays sticky. Okay, now I'm gonna try this one. This one.
Okay, where's the bee?
Right back there.
Oh,
Right there.
right.
Right there. Under it. Right there. Here. Where? Over there.
Wait, that's not in a good place. This one,
You might want to try doing it while it's sitting on a flower.
I know.
Actually, I'm gonna empty everything out.
No, I didn't get it. It needs to be like in a big clump.
Oh, a bumblebee.
And if it's
Do you
not,
see any bumblebees?
What do you hear?
Noise.
What's in there?
Bee noises.
Daddy,
I'm gonna go get my tag.
just like pesticides.
I know, so we want to get it on there. We want to get it on there before they come. Yeah, they'll be.
We're making a hive for bees. We need the seeds to grow flowers for the bees.
We need some rocks, though.
We don't need rocks. There's like 3 rocks. Addie, I have to
I just need a couple.
There's rocks in there.
What kind of flowers are you planting?
They look
Margot.
look like
Do you know? See what that says, Addie? On the front?
marigold.
Yeah, marigolds.
Because I just don't want to have bees keep from their swarm. It just doesn't feel right. Besides, they should be with their swarm. They can move in if they want. Besides, a teapot could work if you put it in there, and you can leave the lid off, and they could go pollinate. And I like the idea of leaving the lid open. We're trying to help bees. Can you help too?
Michelle, come see my bee.
He's
Adorable.
sure is.
Bees are great. They are so great. The bees are amazing. They need some help. They're disappearing, but we don't know how they are. Kiss a bee, but you don't want to. Just imagine it. Help the bees! Help! Help the bees! Please help the bees! Yeah, baby! Got 100 people! Yeah!
I'm gonna pop some tags. I'm gonna pop some tags.
African honeybee is the 24th most dangerous animal ever.
Yeah. Black
Oh, yeah.
The important thing about a bee is that it pollinates. It sings and it has a hive, and it buzzes from flower to flower. But the important thing about a bee is that it pollinates.
The important thing about a bee is that they help the flowers grow. They live in a beehive.
Honey.
They fly, they make honey. The important thing about a bee is that it helps the flowers grow.
The important thing about a bee is that they pollinate fruits and vegetables like carrots and pears. They fly from flower to flower. They take pollen and give it to the next flower. But the important thing about a bee
is that they pollinate fruits and vegetables.
The important thing about a bee is that they sting. They fly, they make honey, they protect the queen. The important thing about a bee is that they sting. The important thing about a bee is that it pollinates. They go from flower to flower, touching the flower with their pollen baskets. Some of the pollen rubs on other flowers, then they take it to their hive. The important thing about a bee is that it pollinates.
The important thing about a bee is that they pollinate. They have a stinger in their abdomen. They make honey. Without bees, there'd be no humans. The important thing about a bee is that they pollinate, don't they?
The most important thing about a bee is that they protect their queen. The queen looks for a hive. Then she lays eggs. The eggs hatch into worker bees. The worker bees pollinate and make honey. But the most important thing about a bee is that they protect their queen.
The important thing about a bee is that it pollinates. It lands on a flower. The pollen from the flower sticks to the bee's honey basket on its legs. Then the bee flies to another flower, then brings the pollen back to the hive. But the important thing about a bee is that it pollinates. Alice.
The important thing about a bee is that they make yummy fruits. They sting, they make honey, they buzz, but the important thing about a bee is that it makes fruit. Hannah.
The important thing about a bee is that it flies from flower to flower. It collects pollen from flowers. When it pollinates, it makes apples. It makes honey out of pollen, then feeds it to the babies. But the important thing about a bee is that it flies from flower to flower. The important thing about bees is that they work together. They support each other. They love each other. When they die, they smell like bananas. They support their queen. But the important thing about bees is that they work together.
The important thing about a bee is that it stings in defense. The most important thing about a bee is that there's bee Pokemon. They die if they sting, and this queen can sting more than once. But the most important thing about a bee is that it stings in defense.
The important thing about a bee is that they live in a hive. They make honey in the hive. They make pollen in the hive. They keep the queen bee safe in the hive. The important thing about a bee is that they live in a hive.
One about a bee that the buzz fly and make honey. We're in the hive. Attack the queen. One about a bee in the sting.
Okay. Here is my picture, first of all. Lucas, that's right! Okay, and here's my poem. The important thing about bees is that they provide strawberries. They make honey and they pollinate. They live in a hive and they protect their queen. They are so friendly to each other. But the important thing about bees is that they provide strawberries.
The important thing about bees is that they make fruit grow. They fly and they have a stinger coming out their butt. When they sting, their insects come out. The important thing about bees is that they help fruit grow. The important thing about a bee is that they make honey. They make honey at their beehive. They pollinate, they help flowers grow. The important thing about a bee is that it makes honey.
The important thing about a bee is that they can fly. Bees collect pollen and nectar to make honey. When bees die, they smell like bananas. When they smell bananas, they get mad because they think there's a dead bee nearby. But the most important thing about bees is that they can fly.
The important thing about a bee is that it makes honey. They go to flowers to collect pollen and nectar. They take it back to their hive and stir it in their mouths. That's the grossest part. Honey is yummy, but the important thing about a bee is that it makes honey royal.
The important thing about a bee is that they're stinky. Drones don't sting. Bees throw up a lot. The queen bee chicks, the drones are behind. I like bees. But the most important thing about a bee is that they're stinky.